go places, people would say, "Are you a Hodges?" And that gave you a sense of pride. I'm a Hodges.
One of my fondest memories was standing on the porch as a little girl, and he said, "Look over all the land that you can see." He said, "My dream was to own all of this land, and I have achieved that dream."
And I never heard anyone in our grandparents' generation talk about the hardships that they must have experienced. I mean, when I look at the farm and I think about all of them, I think, I have no idea what it was like. I can't even imagine. And that's the thing that I see, that I think about.
Grandpa felt that to own the land made him free. That's sort of a way that he interpreted freedom.
So he was probably one of the largest black landowners, not only in the county, but the state of North Carolina.
Having a purpose and living out that purpose. And that purpose is not just about you, but it's about those who will come after you.
He loved his family.
On October 12, 1866, a black child was born not far from here in Manchester, North Carolina. His name was Samuel J. Hodges. It was 1 year after the end of the Civil War. Tough times for the South, tougher times for black people trying to find opportunity. But from those humble and meager beginnings, Samuel Hodges built an empire. In fact, everything you can see around me eventually belonged to him. Decades after he was born, Samuel Hodges was one of the largest black landowners in the state of North Carolina. He and his wife, Fanny, built their family here. Generations of Hodges grew up on this soil. How did they do it? Why did they do it? And what's been the legacy for generations of Hodges' descendants? It's a story of resilience, dedication, passion, love. Because of them, we are who we are today.
My name is Willis Johnson Charles. I am the granddaughter of Samuel Hodges Sr., the daughter of his firstborn, Alice Hodges Johnson, and I was born in the year 1933. Grandpa Hodges was a unique presence. To think of him brings tears to my eyes. He was a wonderful grandfather, very attentive, as busy as he was, and he was indeed, his day was filled with lots of activities. He was a farmer from sunup to sundown. One of the things that I did not mention early on, he was a blacksmith, and he took me to see where he worked. In the neighborhood, he did all of the horseshoeing and all of the repairs of farm implements. He stayed busy with that. He made furniture. The itinerant minister's wife was pregnant and needed a rocking chair. Who built the rocking chair? Sam Hodges.
My father brought me down here and said, "This is the Hodges Cemetery," and I'm walking around. I guess I'm a high school student and stuff, and I got this tingling. I stood over a grave and just kind of like, oh, sparks, what is this? Whose grave is this? It was Grandpa Hodges's. So,
You literally tingled.
that is the truth. I just had tingling. Haven't had that since that before. So
What do you think that was?
he recognized again, a relative, put it that way. Hope Mills, of course, was a mill town that needed energy to run the mills, and wood was the energy. He was fortunate enough to associate himself with the owners of the mill. They were from Ardmore, Pennsylvania. They were what we call, or not we, the Southerners call carpetbaggers. He noticed that they needed energy, and he was a pretty bright fellow because he did everything. He could cook, he could shoe horses, he could build, everything. So they asked him, did he know of anyone who could supply timber? And of course, this is during a time where land was plentiful. So they told him, and he said, well, he told them, he says, well, if you give me the land, I'll cut it. So, they didn't inquire, well, what's he gonna do? He's a black man just out of slavery, how's he gonna do this? So what he did was still work periodically for the people in Pennsylvania, and in the evening, he cut the land and transported it to the mill.
How did you know how he transported that?
Well, everything was horse and buggy. There were no cars, because Jim was born in 1893. Alice, the oldest, was born in 1892. Right, she was a year older
So
than
we're
he
talking
was.
about the end of the 19th century.
We're basically talking about the end of Reconstruction.
So Grandpa Hodges was acquiring land without, because he, as a black man, he should not have been able to get
He should not
deed
have,
for,
right.
for land. But these
Carpetbaggers, what you would call carpetbaggers,
from
Pennsylvania, Ardmore, Pennsylvania, which he lived with when they would go to Ardmore periodically,
Right.
and he would go with them.
They would sell him. They would give him the land.
They would give
deed
him the
it to
land,
him.
deed it to him.
Sam Hodges accumulated so much land that didn't he become one of the biggest landowners?
Yeah, he became, I think according to the Raleigh News and Observer a couple of years ago, he owned more than 2,000 acres. They gathered up 2,000 acres of land. So he was probably one of the largest black landowners, not only in the county, but the state of North Carolina.
One of my fondest memories was standing on the porch as a little girl, and he said, "Look over all the land that you can see." He said, "My dream was to own all of this land, and I have achieved that dream."
My name is Reginald Hodges. I was born in 1944. I'm the son of Samuel Hodges II, who is the son of Sam and Fanny Hodges. That makes me third generation. Grandpa felt that to own the land made him free. That's sort of a way that he interpreted freedom. He wanted his grave to have a large stone on it, like graves that he had seen at other people's graveyards. And that was one thing I remember Jim and Honey and my father talking about in their talk on the porch. That Grandpa died free because he owned the land that he was on. He had a parlor where his body sat in, and he owned the house. And he got that big stone on his grave. And for him, that was just important as being able to vote, being able to go to any school he wanted to, do any of the other things that we see as indication of advancement today. His advancement was in the land, owning that house and having that stone on his grave. So he died a free man.
I heard that Grandpa was very, very aggressive. I also heard that he was not educated, had never been to school a day in his life. But there are things that governed that helped with that caused him to do a lot of other things. Like, for instance, he built the first black school for this area. He built the first black church for this area because he saw the need that blacks weren't educated. Because he wasn't educated and the world was moving, the world was changing, he saw the need for blacks to become educated.
And I think that his wife, Fanny, even though we don't know much about her, no one talks about her, had to be a very strong woman to live with a very strong man and a very strong community. So she was a Buxton. She was, I guess, a quiet lady. So, you know, he couldn't have done that without her. Well, Robert and James were, I guess you could say, they're two little boys who were sent out to go to the store to pick up some bread and butter and stuff. The Hodges family lived on the lake in Hope Mills. They were the only minority family to live in Hope Mills at the time. Hope Mills, of course, was a sundown town. They had to be out of the streets by sundown. But they sent the little boys to pick up the bread and butter, whatever, and time passed and they didn't return, so they went out to look for them and found them both drowned, head down into the lake.
How old were they?
They were, and I will tell you, they were not very old. They were little kids,
Robert
like
was
7 years old, and James was probably about four. Yeah.
7 and 4.
Right. And they were being used to sending them out to get stuff. Over the years, people would say, well, they did drown, they shouldn't have been playing. Sometimes they would say it was the Ku Klux Klan, which was very prominent in eastern North Carolina, but we don't know the truth.
Whatever it was devastating for the family. Because Robert was the little son of Sam and Fanny.
Right.
And James was the little son of your grandfather,
Right.
Jim.
Right.
So they were actually uncle and nephew.
Yes.
These two little boys.
Yep. And that was one of the main reasons why they moved out here, to get away from so-called, well, some racism in the town.
He built the house himself. He cut down a lot of trees there, and he had a mill in Hope Mills. He started the house in the early 1900s, 1905 or so, and the house was completed in 1911, even though they continued adding on after that. The house had 5 bedrooms upstairs. It had 1 bedroom downstairs. It had a kitchen, a dining room, a parlor, a sitting room. It was a fairly large house. They added on the back porch later, which became a meeting place where people got together and talked.
This is the front of the house. Originally, the original road was right here, front. To the side over there was the screened-in porch. Along with behind that, there's the barn, and the tractor was stored there. And you said nobody had real tractors, so it was basically a stable. Grandpa Hodges was known for, I guess, his craftsmanship. He was a wheelwright, a cook. He could pretty much do a lot of stuff. I later found out years ago, I had a brother that passed here when my parents were living here, and Grandpa Hodges built the baby's coffin.
Grandpa made a bench that he put behind the table in the kitchen. And on that bench, that's where all the children used to sit to eat. And you could get like 4 or 5 children on that bench. And Honey would bring the plates to whatever children were there. But that bench, some kind of way, survived. And it was in my father's attic in his house in Greensboro. And he pointed out, don't ever get rid of that bench. And Carl saw the bench, and Carl remembered sitting on the bench as a child. I remember sitting on the bench. That was the bench that Grandpa made. I still have that bench up in my attic. And when I look at that bench, it brings back the memories of all of the food that Honey and the people used to cook there. They were the best cooks that ever existed anywhere in the world. I mean, Honey would do these peas and butter beans and corn together. I guess you put butter and sugar in them. But it was like a dessert. And they had all of these collard greens and these stews and pinto beans. These things were unbelievable. And she would make this cornbread and these little cornbread pancakes, the smell of biscuits in the morning, the liver pudding and stuff. I mean, those are the memories that stand out for me from that house. When I see that bench, all of those smells come back to me thinking about that.
I think one of the biggest contributions he made to our memories was his chopped barbecue. I never saw him at work. He cooked the meat overnight, but he took me to see his pit and the basket that he made that would enclose the pig and his stash of hickory wood. He specified hickory wood for the fire. And Grandpa would make that fire, and when it burned to a certain low, he would start the overnight process of cooking this entire pig. And his basket, all he had to do was flip it. And some of our barbecue places have copied that pattern. He was very innovative. Grandpa's barbecue was chopped barbecue. Now we talk about pulled pork and we talk about sliced pork, but his chopped barbecue had a unique flavor. And that he would cater on many occasions, where he would have the guests come out to his place. The ladies in the family, that being Honey and Mildred and Aunt Bertha, would prepare the slaw, his recipe, homemade applesauce, and Honey's fried cornbread. And you talk about a meal.
He took care of his brothers, his sisters, his children's children, cousins. Everybody lived in that house. That house made people. Whatever went on in that house, and when they went out in the world, they did well. Yes.
Well, in my early years, there was no running water at the farm and no electricity. And I just marvel as I look back on the ladies of the house, pumping the water, bringing it to the house, cooking on a wood stove, and the wood had to be a certain length. So they had to chisel the wood down to the perfect length to fit in the stove. And the evening lighting was a kerosene lamp that had to be maintained. Those chimneys had to be washed occasionally. They would get sooty. The wicks had to be replaced and filled with kerosene, and no running water for a toilet. And I never heard a complaint. I never heard them say they were tired or they didn't want to do it. Always with a smile. I just was amazed by that. And particularly as I look back on it in today's situations. His mama was the oldest of 12 and apparently had a real talent for the piano and her solo voice, soprano voice. And Grandpa would want her to play, and he would sing solos with her, she said, and they would do duets together. At 17 years old, she obviously met the enrollment requirements and admission requirements at Mary Potter Academy in Oxford, North Carolina. There she studied and sang for the faculty's song. She had a beautiful soprano voice. My father was a member of the faculty, Cornell Alvin Johnson, and over time expressed his admiration of Alice, and a relationship developed. Not sure of the above time, but on September the 13th, 1933, my parents wed.
When she was coming, it was always like, wow, this magnificent person is coming. Now, Hope Mills, did you know Aunt Alice is coming? And I remember her speech. It was so poised, so elegant. It's almost like when she spoke, it was like speaking poetry.
Those were glorious days. Mama loved Hope Mills. She said the sky was bluer and the grass was greener in North Carolina.
My father's name is James Hodges. Called him Jim. That was his nickname. My mother was Mattie Javis, Nana Hodges. They had 17 children. And out of those 17 children, what was it? 9 girls, 8 boys. Is that 17, 18? 9? No, I'm sorry. They had 17, James, Charles, Carl, Tommy, Helen, Juanita, Maribel, Mabel, Barbara, Claretta, Sylvia, Bernice, Clarence, Bernard, J.D. I'm right, yeah. They had, good God, they had 17 children, yes.
So I know he was a wonderful father, a wonderful provider, but just being a grandpa, he was fun. He was loving. We got to watch him with my grandmother. We got to watch him with his children, our parents and aunts and uncles. And then even with us, he was funny. We got the funny part of him. My dad and his sisters and brothers said that, he was never that funny with us. He was serious and, because of course it was all about work. But with us, it was, fun and games. And I think we entertained him. He used to get tickled watching us. So he was an amazing person. We learned a lot from him. He was a good businessman. He was still farming, when we got the opportunity to see him still in action and working.
And Uncle Jim played in the minor baseball leagues. He said he was a good pitcher. He was not modest. He said he was really a good pitcher. Ended up farming, having married, and providing for his children. And so proud of him, so proud of all of them.
She expected the best, but she wasn't one who just pushed you beyond your limits. She pushed you to do the best that you could do. She liked things done correct. She liked things done not just any kind of way. And she had a high standard. I believe, and will always believe, that she was Mac's Tavern and the filling station. I believe that she was and will always be the one who really accomplished those things that were accomplished. That's not to say that she didn't have help. I think Uncle Ernest was her support. But as far as really executing and taking care of things, that's what she did. When you would go into Mac's Tavern, or we call the filling station, you would go into the front part, which was more like a general store. There you'd get your cold drinks, you could get ice cream cones, and then there might have been some staples that you could pick up that you didn't get when you went into town. There was a kitchen where barbecue was chopped and mixed together for those delicious barbecue sandwiches with coleslaw. There was an area too that was sectioned off with a jukebox and had booths, and you could put your nickel in, select your song and dance. And then upstairs was the living quarters, and that's where Uncle Ernest, Aunt Bertha, and Uncle Cornell stayed.
Honey became sort of the matriarch of the family after Fanny died, and it was Honey's house. Honey was in charge, even though she had this very soft and loving personality. I never heard her holler at anyone, and she liked to hug and kiss, and she was proud of everyone. And I know my father and Aunt Bertha and them used to talk about Honey because apparently Grandpa never made her do all the work in the field like the other people.
Honey was also a dietitian, but shortly after Martin Luther King was assassinated, I think someone maybe had mentioned it was a good thing that he's gone. And Honey, very calm lady, never says a bad thing, could not handle that. And I don't remember what she said, but that was her last day. Like, I'm not working here anymore.
Aunt Honey, everybody loved Aunt Honey. She was, you get a hug from Aunt Honey and you just think you've gone to heaven. It was so nice. She's a sweetheart. My name is Adele Hodges. I'm the granddaughter of Roscoe Lee Hodges, Sr., the daughter of Roscoe Lee Hodges, Jr.
What did we know your dad's name as? What did people call him?
They called him Buster, and they called my grandfather Raz. So I don't know where Raz came from, but I'm sure it came something to do with Roscoe. But Raz was my grandfather. Buster was my father. My grandfather was a mechanic. He was also a farmer. So when he came home, he had stuff to do, in his garden, as we call it. It was a big garden. He was a dedicated mechanic, even though He worked in downtown Southern Pines, and you know, his work was very important to him.
I am Joey LaHuffman. I am the son of Alma Jean LaHuffman. I am the grandson of Scotch Hodges. He was an entrepreneur. He understood business. He understood the seasons of harvesting. He created, you know, a heck of a farm and an industry out there with the rest of the Hodges men. I know that he had tremendous work ethic because look at us. I mean, we all work hard no matter what our profession. And that didn't come by accident. I knew he had a lot of integrity. He was well liked. He loved his wife. He loved his family. He loved the Hodges land. He was a Hodges true blue, and he loved baseball.
Then there was Aunt Ethel.
Oh, she was a top chef. She was a beautician, and she had a business. And I remember that she was kind of short and switching, you know, when she walked around. And she also kind of felt that she was top chef also.
Oh yes,
because she had a business, you know, and she had a beautiful several beauticians working for her.
We had 2 beauticians in Fayetteville, right? Miss Sparks and Aunt Ethel, kind of competitive. If you went to Miss Sparks, you got your hair done without grease, right? And you got it done nice. Aunt Ethel had kind of the same thing, and it was like a sort of like a, where do you go, to Ethel's Beauty Parlor or Sparks?
Big Ethel, and we called her Big Ethel because I had a sister named Ethel, named for Big Ethel. Was quite the entrepreneur. She had her own beauty shop in Fayetteville and owned that whole block of, I don't know if it was a plaza-like or individuals, but she owned the whole block.
Mill lived at the house. Mill was a hard worker. In the morning, when we got up sometime or having breakfast, Mill would be out working in the garden, and she would still be there all the way up until late in the evening. So that was her personality.
I remember her as always sitting with her hands behind her. Lord, I must say. And I remember, I don't know why, I remember a pot of beef stew that she cooked, and crocheting. She liked to crochet. Just a very down-home person, full of love.
Marion got her degree and became an outstanding teacher.
Okay, my mom, she was very quiet. She wasn't a woman of a lot of words. She always said, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything. But she was very, very neat, clean, cooked meals. We always had to have the kitchen cleaned after dinner, no dishwasher. Diane and I took turns washing and drying dishes, and she was a good mother, good housewife, but not a organization. She wasn't a member of the lady clubs, which I know she had been invited to join several times, but she wasn't one to be wrapped up into groups like that. I think she was more independent. And I think because she had so many sisters that she was comfortable with the family that she had, you know. It wasn't like she was looking for her sorority sisters, as you say, or whatever. She was more connected with her family.
My father loved agriculture from the beginning, and I guess he sort of saw it as a career before he ever went to college. But he went to A&T and he studied agriculture. He went to A&T during the Great Depression. So he had it very hard in terms of trying to find money and resources to pay for his education. Grandpa didn't pay for him to go to school. He made it through A&T primarily because he was a basketball player. He played on the A&T basketball team, and they won the first CIAA championship in 1937. My father graduated in 1939 with a degree in agriculture, and he came back to the farm. And many people were going into the Army then because of World War II. But because of his agriculture expertise, the government thought that he would be a better asset working for the government, procuring food for Fort Bragg, the military base. I only had one father, and I think my father was a perfect father. I know some children look back on problems they had with their father, but I never had any. Our father always was involved with Christmas, vacations, with us in school. He was the neighborhood father. He built a basketball court for the children when we were small. He took us all to the baseball games at Memorial Park in Greensboro. He bought popcorn for everyone. He played baseball with us. He coached the church under 12 basketball team. So he was a real father. He taught us the values of work, of honesty, of going to church.
To me, the legacy of the family pretty much kind of is based on a quote from Grandpa Hodges. It's better to wear out than to rust out. In other words, doing something, being about something, and not just living or existing, having a purpose and living out that purpose. And that purpose is not just about you, but it's about those who will come after you.
But here's a man that was not educated at all. But you can also think about this. The times were different. What was his competition? Who was he competing with? Blacks on one side and whites on another side. But he figured out a way to do it. And he did it, and he encouraged his children. They married well, their children did well, their children did well, and here we are.
They would look and think, this is what he intended to happen. You know, that his spawn, or whatever you want to call us, would be successful. And in some sense, our success is less than his because we didn't have to work as hard to obtain it. That's how I look at it.
He didn't have the example of the father figure, but he was self-determined, and he stayed with his wife, Fanny Buxton Hodges, and she was having all of these children and finding ways to not only support his own family, but to support the community and to have a spiritual base in the Hope Mills community. And so I really admire what they both gave to our family and the whole community, the whole Black community, which also was a good thing for all of the diverse community of Hope Mills and Fayetteville, because they'd gotten so much respect for how focused they were on doing what their purpose was in life.
It's a delicate and a gift. It's a gift to have a family. And I have to remind myself sometimes that I have one, when I'm here in New York, because it's such a, busy place and you get so self-consumed. But I have a family, and that's a privilege. And I'm thankful for that.
I think there are different things that you would look at in categorizing this great individual. He was a family man first. He believed strongly in the family. And I think the fact that we will be having third or fourth reunion of family members now, and all the different things that the family has achieved and how they've stayed together as a unit. The family is part of his legacy. I think his love of land over money, and what he did with that land, building himself and his family, I think the land is part of it. His belief in education, even though he was not a well-educated person, was sort of a foresight of things to come. So I think education and religion, I think all of these things will be part of his legacy.